There is one habit that millions of men repeat almost every day without realizing what it may slowly be doing to their body, their brain, and their intimate life. At first, it feels harmless. It feels private, temporary, even relaxing. But over time, many men begin noticing strange changes. Their erections do not feel as strong as before. Their control starts slipping. Pleasure becomes weaker. Real intimacy feels less exciting. Confidence drops silently. And the worst part is that most men never connect these problems to the habit causing them. They think stress is the issue. They think age is the issue. They think maybe something is permanently wrong with them. But what if the real cause is something happening repeatedly inside the brain and nervous system every single week? Today, we are uncovering the truth behind a habit that may be quietly changing your sexual health without you even noticing it. Welcome back to the Sexual Health Room. Let's dive deeper into our topic. The human brain is designed to respond to stimulation in a balanced and natural way. When a person experiences attraction, touch, emotional bonding, excitement, and anticipation naturally, the brain releases chemicals like dopamine in healthy patterns. Dopamine is often called the reward chemical. It is responsible for motivation, excitement, pleasure, and desire. But when the brain receives extremely intense stimulation too frequently, especially artificial stimulation, something starts changing. Slowly, the brain adapts. What once felt exciting becomes normal. What once caused pleasure becomes less powerful. And eventually, the brain begins demanding stronger stimulation just to feel the same excitement again. This is where many men unknowingly enter a dangerous cycle. At first, the habit feels exciting and satisfying. But after repeated exposure, the nervous system begins getting overstimulated. The brain becomes conditioned to quick excitement, instant gratification, and unrealistic stimulation patterns. Real-life intimacy, which is naturally slower and emotionally connected, may start feeling less stimulating compared to the artificial intensity the brain has become used to. This is one of the reasons why some men begin struggling with erections during real intimacy even though physically they seem healthy. And this is where things become scary because many men are completely unaware of what is happening. They think, I'm young, so why am I losing erection strength? Others wonder why their excitement disappears during intimacy despite having attraction toward their partner. Some men notice they need more extreme stimulation than before just to feel aroused. Others begin losing morning erections, which can sometimes be an important sign of declining sexual responsiveness. These changes usually do not happen overnight. They happen gradually, quietly, slowly enough that most people never realize the connection until the problem becomes severe. Now imagine this carefully. Your brain is like a reward machine. Every time you overstimulate it with excessive artificial pleasure, your dopamine system receives an unnatural flood of reward signals. Over time, the brain protects itself by reducing sensitivity. This process is called desensitization. That means normal levels of stimulation no longer feel powerful enough. The same thing can happen with pleasure, excitement, and even emotional connection. This is why some men begin reporting emotional numbness, low motivation, reduced confidence, and declining interest in real relationships after years of excessive stimulation habits. But erections are not just physical. That is something many people fail to understand. Erections are deeply connected to the brain, emotions, blood flow, hormones, stress levels, and nervous system activity. If the brain is exhausted, overstimulated, anxious, distracted, or conditioned toward unrealistic patterns, erection quality can suffer even when the body itself is healthy. Many men focus only on testosterone, but they ignore the brain's role in sexual performance. The brain is actually one of the most powerful sexual organs in the entire body. And here comes another shocking reality. Excessive stimulation can also affect control. Many men notice they either lose control too quickly or struggle to stay mentally engaged during intimacy. Why does this happen? Because the brain has been trained for fast reward patterns. Instant stimulation conditions the nervous system to react rapidly rather than naturally building excitement gradually. Over time, this may interfere with endurance, focus, and overall satisfaction during intimacy. Instead of enjoying connection and emotional chemistry, the brain starts chasing quick dopamine spikes. Think about how dangerous this cycle can become. A man experiences weaker pleasure, so he seeks stronger stimulation. Stronger stimulation further desensitizes the brain. Then real intimacy feels even less exciting. This leads to frustration, guilt, stress, and anxiety. That anxiety itself can further damage erection quality. Suddenly, the person is trapped in a cycle where both the brain and emotional state are working against healthy sexual function. And many people do not talk about the psychological damage this can create. Confidence begins collapsing silently. Some men start avoiding relationships because they fear embarrassment. Others feel shame and confusion but never discuss it with anyone. Some even convince themselves that they are permanently damaged. The emotional burden can become extremely heavy because sexual health is closely connected with self-esteem, masculinity, confidence, and emotional well-being. But here is something extremely important you need to understand. The human brain is adaptable. The nervous system can recover. The body has an incredible ability to heal when harmful patterns are reduced and healthy habits are restored. Many men who reduce overstimulation and rebuild healthier routines notice improvements in sensitivity, erection quality, emotional connection, motivation, and overall confidence over time. Recovery does not happen instantly, but the body often responds positively when given proper conditions. Now let us talk about another hidden factor most people ignore: attention span and mental focus. Constant overstimulation trains the brain to constantly seek novelty and instant excitement. This does not only affect intimacy. It can begin affecting concentration, productivity, patience, and emotional stability in daily life. Some men notice brain fog, low energy, poor motivation, and reduced discipline. They feel mentally exhausted even when physically rested. This happens because the reward system of the brain is constantly being overloaded. And there is another layer that makes this issue even more serious. Unrealistic stimulation changes expectations. Real relationships involve emotional connection, communication, imperfections, patience, and natural chemistry. But when the brain becomes conditioned to unrealistic intensity, real-life intimacy may begin feeling emotionally disconnected or visually less stimulating. This disconnect can damage relationships and emotional bonding over time. Here is the frightening part many people never realize until years later: habits shape the brain. Every repeated behavior strengthens certain neural pathways. The more frequently a person repeats a stimulation pattern, the stronger the brain associates pleasure with that pattern. Eventually, the brain can become conditioned so deeply that natural attraction alone may no longer trigger the same level of excitement as before. This is why some individuals begin struggling despite genuinely loving or being attracted to their partner. Now pause and think about this carefully. If your erections are becoming weaker, your pleasure feels reduced, your confidence is dropping, or your control is changing, what if your body is not actually broken? What if your brain is simply overstimulated and exhausted from repeated dopamine flooding? That possibility changes everything because it means improvement may be possible through lifestyle changes rather than fear and hopelessness. Scientists and psychologists have increasingly discussed how overstimulation affects dopamine sensitivity, reward pathways, and behavioral conditioning. The conversation around sexual health is changing because researchers now understand that the brain's reward system plays a massive role in desire, performance, motivation, and satisfaction. This is no longer just about willpower. It is about neuroscience, conditioning, and mental health. But the problem becomes even worse when combined with poor sleep, stress, lack of exercise, anxiety, junk food, and social isolation. All these factors together create the perfect environment for declining sexual health. Low physical activity reduces blood circulation. Chronic stress increases cortisol. Poor sleep disrupts hormone balance. Anxiety interferes with arousal. And excessive stimulation further overloads the reward system. The result can be declining erections, poor control, lower satisfaction, and emotional exhaustion. And yet millions of men continue ignoring the warning signs. They normalize fatigue. They normalize weak excitement. They normalize low confidence. They normalize emotional numbness. But deep inside, many know something feels different. Many remember a time when excitement felt natural, when erections were stronger, when confidence came easily, and when intimacy felt emotionally powerful rather than mentally disconnected. The good news is that awareness is the first step toward improvement. Once a person understands how habits influence the brain and body, they can begin making healthier decisions. Small changes repeated consistently can reshape the nervous system over time. Better sleep, exercise, reduced overstimulation, stress management, healthy relationships, emotional connection, and mental discipline can all help restore balance within the brain and body. But there is still another major reason why this habit may be affecting erections, pleasure, and control in ways most people never expect. And what happens inside the brain during prolonged overstimulation becomes even more surprising when hormones, anxiety, and performance pressure enter the picture. In the next part, we are going to uncover the hidden connection between dopamine exhaustion, performance anxiety, and why many men suddenly lose confidence during real intimacy even when everything seemed normal before. Most men think erection problems begin in the body. They blame blood flow, age, weakness, or testosterone. But in many cases, the real battle begins inside the mind long before the body reacts. And this is where the situation becomes dangerous because once anxiety enters intimacy, the brain can start sabotaging sexual performance even when the body is physically capable of functioning normally. Imagine this situation. A man experiences one weak erection or one embarrassing moment during intimacy. Maybe he loses firmness unexpectedly. Maybe excitement disappears midway. Maybe control is lost too quickly. That single moment creates fear. And the next time intimacy begins, the brain remembers that fear. Suddenly, instead of feeling relaxed and connected, the person becomes hyper-aware of performance. He starts monitoring himself constantly. Will it happen again? Am I staying hard enough? What if I fail? These thoughts create pressure. And pressure is one of the biggest enemies of healthy sexual function. This is because erections depend heavily on relaxation and parasympathetic nervous system activity. When a man feels safe, calm, connected, and mentally present, the body allows blood vessels to expand naturally. Blood flow increases. Excitement builds gradually. But anxiety activates the fight-or-flight response. Stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline increase. The body shifts into survival mode instead of intimacy mode. Blood vessels tighten. Heart rate changes. Mental focus breaks apart. And suddenly the erection becomes weaker or disappears completely. Now here comes the terrifying cycle many men fall into without realizing it. The habit of excessive overstimulation conditions the brain to respond to fast, intense, artificial stimulation. Real intimacy already begins feeling less stimulating than before. Then performance anxiety enters the picture. Now the brain is dealing with both desensitization and fear at the same time. This combination can seriously damage confidence and sexual performance over time. And what makes this even worse is that many men panic after experiencing temporary erection issues. The moment panic begins, the brain starts treating intimacy like a test instead of a natural experience. Instead of enjoying emotional connection, touch, chemistry, and attraction, the mind becomes obsessed with performance monitoring. This mental pressure alone can weaken arousal. Many people do not understand how powerful psychological arousal actually is. Sexual performance is not only mechanical. It is emotional, neurological, hormonal, and psychological. Attraction begins in the brain before the body even responds physically. If the mind is distracted by fear, shame, stress, guilt, or unrealistic expectations, the body often struggles to respond naturally. And there is another hidden problem few people discuss openly: comparison. Excessive artificial stimulation often creates unrealistic expectations about bodies, performance, endurance, reactions, and pleasure. Over time, some men begin comparing themselves constantly. They question whether they are good enough. They worry about size, stamina, erections, or performance. This destroys confidence slowly from the inside. Confidence is one of the most powerful components of healthy intimacy. When confidence drops, anxiety rises. When anxiety rises, arousal becomes unstable. And when arousal becomes unstable, fear increases even more. The person then seeks stronger stimulation for reassurance, which can deepen desensitization further. This creates a loop where both the brain and emotional state continuously reinforce the problem. Now let us talk about dopamine exhaustion more deeply, because this is where things become extremely important. Dopamine is not just about pleasure. It is also connected to motivation, anticipation, excitement, and drive. When the reward system is constantly overloaded, the brain may begin responding less intensely not only to intimacy but also to daily life experiences. Some men notice reduced motivation, emotional flatness, lack of excitement, poor focus, and low energy levels. They feel disconnected from activities they once enjoyed. This happens because the brain's reward pathways are becoming overstimulated repeatedly without enough recovery. The nervous system was never designed for constant high-intensity stimulation every day without balance. Over time, the brain starts protecting itself by lowering sensitivity. And when sensitivity drops, normal pleasures can begin feeling weaker. Think about this carefully. If someone constantly eats extremely sugary foods every day, natural sweetness from fruits may eventually feel less satisfying. A similar process can happen with the brain's reward system. Extreme stimulation changes baseline sensitivity. Real intimacy, which depends on emotional buildup and natural chemistry, may no longer create the same level of excitement as before. And then another issue appears: emotional disconnection. Many men begin noticing that physical stimulation alone no longer creates deep satisfaction. The emotional side of intimacy weakens. Real connection, affection, warmth, and bonding become overshadowed by the brain's craving for instant reward patterns. This can quietly damage relationships because intimacy is not only about physical reactions. Emotional presence matters deeply. There is also a growing discussion among psychologists about how repeated overstimulation may affect attention regulation and impulse control. The brain becomes trained to chase quick dopamine spikes instead of patience and delayed gratification. This conditioning can spread into other areas of life as well. Some people struggle with discipline, consistency, focus, and emotional regulation because the brain constantly craves rapid stimulation. And here comes another shocking reality. Sleep quality can also suffer. Many men who engage in overstimulation late at night disrupt their natural sleep cycles. Poor sleep directly affects testosterone production, energy levels, mood stability, stress management, and recovery. Over time, this can further worsen sexual health. Testosterone naturally regenerates during healthy sleep patterns. Chronic sleep deprivation weakens the entire hormonal system. Now combine poor sleep with stress, anxiety, unhealthy eating, lack of exercise, and constant overstimulation. The nervous system becomes overwhelmed. Blood circulation worsens. Mental clarity declines. Confidence weakens. Emotional resilience drops. Sexual performance suffers. But instead of identifying the root causes, many men continue blaming themselves or assuming permanent damage. And this fear can become psychologically devastating. Some men begin avoiding relationships completely. Others isolate themselves emotionally. Some become trapped in shame and secrecy because they feel nobody understands what they are experiencing. But the reality is that millions of men silently struggle with these issues around the world. The body gives warning signs long before severe problems appear. Reduced morning erections, declining sensitivity, weaker excitement, emotional numbness, difficulty staying mentally engaged during intimacy, needing stronger stimulation to feel aroused, poor endurance, and anxiety during intimacy can all become signals that the brain and nervous system are becoming overstimulated and imbalanced. But here is something extremely important: the brain is capable of adaptation in both directions. Just as harmful habits can strengthen unhealthy neural pathways, healthier behaviors can gradually rebuild sensitivity and balance. When overstimulation decreases, many people report improvements in emotional connection, mental clarity, motivation, erection quality, sensitivity, and overall confidence. However, recovery is not always immediate. This is something many people misunderstand. The brain needs time to recalibrate dopamine sensitivity and reward balance. During this period, some individuals may temporarily feel low motivation or reduced excitement because the brain is adjusting away from constant overstimulation. But over time, natural responsiveness often begins returning gradually. Exercise plays a major role here as well. Physical activity improves blood circulation, reduces stress hormones, boosts mood-regulating chemicals, and supports cardiovascular health, which is essential for erections. Healthy eating supports hormone balance. Sleep restores the nervous system. Emotional connection reduces anxiety. Mental discipline strengthens self-control. All these factors work together. But perhaps one of the most powerful changes happens mentally. When a person stops constantly chasing instant stimulation, the mind often becomes calmer. Focus improves. Emotional stability increases. Real-life experiences begin feeling more meaningful again. Confidence slowly rebuilds because the brain is no longer trapped in an endless cycle of overstimulation and reward exhaustion. And this leads us to the biggest question of all. If this habit can affect erections, pleasure, confidence, emotional connection, motivation, and mental health so deeply, then what actually happens when someone finally breaks free from the cycle? What changes occur inside the brain, body, hormones, and relationships when recovery truly begins? Because in the final part, we are going to uncover the transformation many men experience after restoring balance to their brain and nervous system, the science behind rebuilding sensitivity and confidence, and the practical changes that can help restore stronger erections, better control, deeper pleasure, and healthier intimacy naturally over time. Imagine waking up one day and realizing your mind feels clearer. Your energy feels stronger. Your confidence starts returning naturally. Real attraction feels exciting again. Intimacy begins feeling emotionally powerful instead of mentally disconnected. Erections feel more responsive. Pleasure feels deeper. Focus improves. Motivation increases. And for the first time in a long time, your brain no longer feels trapped in an endless cycle of overstimulation and exhaustion. This is the transformation many men begin describing when they finally break free from habits that were silently damaging their nervous system and sexual health for years. But what actually causes this transformation? The answer lies inside the brain's ability to recover and rewire itself. The human brain is not static. It constantly changes based on repeated behaviors, thoughts, emotions, and experiences. This process is called neuroplasticity. Every repeated habit strengthens certain neural pathways. Harmful habits reinforce unhealthy reward circuits. Healthy habits strengthen balance, emotional stability, discipline, and natural responsiveness. That means the same brain that adapted to overstimulation can also adapt toward recovery. And this is where hope becomes real. When excessive artificial stimulation decreases, the dopamine system slowly begins recalibrating itself. The brain no longer receives constant floods of extreme reward signals. Over time, sensitivity can begin returning gradually. Natural experiences start feeling rewarding again. Emotional connection becomes more meaningful. Real intimacy feels exciting because the brain is no longer comparing it to unrealistic stimulation patterns every day. This process does not happen overnight. And that is important to understand because many people give up too early. Modern culture has conditioned people to expect instant results. But recovery inside the nervous system takes patience. The brain needs time to rebuild healthy reward balance. Some people experience temporary emotional flatness during early recovery because the brain is adjusting away from constant dopamine overload. But slowly, many begin noticing important changes. Morning erections may start returning more consistently. Mental focus improves. Motivation becomes stronger. Anxiety reduces. Emotional presence during intimacy increases. Some men describe feeling alive again because their brain is no longer constantly overstimulated and exhausted. And perhaps the most powerful improvement happens psychologically. Confidence starts rebuilding naturally. Not fake confidence. Not temporary confidence based on stimulation or distraction. Real confidence. The kind that comes from feeling mentally in control again. The kind that comes from no longer depending on artificial excitement to feel pleasure. The kind that develops when the brain regains balance and emotional stability. Because confidence and sexual health are deeply connected. A confident mind creates a calmer nervous system. A calmer nervous system supports stronger arousal and healthier erections. Reduced anxiety allows the body to respond naturally during intimacy. Instead of monitoring performance constantly, the person becomes emotionally present in the moment again. And this emotional presence itself can dramatically improve pleasure, connection, and satisfaction. Now let us discuss another critical factor that many people completely underestimate: blood circulation. Healthy erections depend heavily on proper blood flow. The penis contains specialized blood vessels and smooth muscle tissue that respond to signals from the brain and nervous system. Poor cardiovascular health, stress, smoking, obesity, lack of exercise, and poor sleep can all negatively affect blood circulation over time. This means sexual health is often closely connected to overall physical health. This is why exercise becomes so powerful during recovery. Physical activity improves circulation throughout the body. It strengthens the heart, supports hormone balance, reduces stress hormones, boosts mood, improves energy levels, and enhances endothelial function inside blood vessels. Even moderate exercise can positively influence sexual health because erections fundamentally rely on healthy blood flow and nervous system responsiveness. And then comes sleep, one of the most ignored recovery factors in modern life. During deep sleep, the body repairs itself. Hormones regulate. Testosterone production occurs primarily during healthy sleep cycles. The brain clears metabolic waste and restores neurological balance. Chronic sleep deprivation damages nearly every system connected to sexual function, including hormones, mood stability, dopamine regulation, stress response, and energy levels. Now think about how many men combine overstimulation habits with late-night sleep deprivation, junk food, stress, and physical inactivity. The nervous system becomes overwhelmed from every direction. Yet many still expect their body to perform perfectly despite living in a constant state of exhaustion. The body always keeps score. And sooner or later, imbalance begins showing symptoms. But recovery is possible because the body is constantly trying to heal when given the opportunity. Nutrition also plays a major role in this transformation. Processed foods, excessive sugar, alcohol abuse, and nutrient deficiencies can negatively affect hormones, circulation, inflammation, and energy levels. Meanwhile, healthier nutrition supports cardiovascular health, hormone production, and nervous system recovery. Foods rich in zinc, magnesium, healthy fats, antioxidants, and proteins support the body's natural repair systems. But there is another dimension of recovery that is even more powerful than physical improvement. Emotional reconnection. Many men trapped in overstimulation cycles slowly become emotionally detached from intimacy without realizing it. Attraction becomes visual instead of emotional. Pleasure becomes mechanical instead of connected. Real relationships may begin feeling less exciting because the brain becomes conditioned toward novelty and intensity rather than emotional bonding. When recovery begins, emotional sensitivity often starts returning too. Simple affection feels meaningful again. Eye contact feels more powerful. Conversation creates emotional chemistry. Touch feels emotionally connected rather than purely stimulating. Many people describe feeling genuinely present during intimacy again instead of mentally distracted or emotionally numb. This emotional reconnection can completely transform relationships. Because true intimacy is not only about physical performance. It is about connection, trust, emotional safety, attraction, chemistry, vulnerability, affection, and presence. Physical reactions become much healthier when emotional connection and mental calmness return naturally. And there is something else most people never realize until they begin recovering. Discipline itself changes the brain. Every time a person resists unhealthy impulses, the prefrontal cortex strengthens. This area of the brain is responsible for decision-making, focus, self-control, and long-term thinking. The stronger this system becomes, the more control a person gains over cravings, distractions, habits, and emotional reactions. This is why many people notice improvements not only in sexual health but also in productivity, focus, motivation, confidence, and emotional resilience after reducing overstimulation habits. The brain starts functioning with greater stability instead of constantly chasing instant dopamine spikes. But let us be very clear about something important. Sexual health problems are not always caused by overstimulation alone. Medical conditions such as diabetes, cardiovascular disease, hormone imbalances, neurological disorders, medication side effects, severe anxiety disorders, depression, and other health conditions can also affect erections and sexual performance. Persistent or severe symptoms should always be evaluated by a qualified healthcare professional because physical health matters deeply. Still, for many people, lifestyle habits and brain conditioning play a much larger role than they realize. And awareness changes everything. The moment someone understands how habits shape the brain, nervous system, hormones, emotions, and sexual function, they stop seeing themselves as broken. Instead, they begin recognizing that the body often responds directly to repeated behaviors and mental conditioning patterns. That realization alone can remove enormous fear. Because fear destroys confidence. And confidence is essential for healthy intimacy. Now imagine the future version of yourself after months of healthier routines. Better sleep. Better focus. Better emotional stability. Better self-control. Stronger confidence. Healthier erections. More emotional connection. Greater pleasure from real experiences. Less anxiety. More energy. A calmer mind. That transformation does not begin with magic pills or instant fixes. It begins with awareness, discipline, consistency, and understanding how deeply the brain and body are connected. The habits repeated in private eventually shape the mind, emotions, confidence, relationships, and overall quality of life. Every decision either strengthens balance or strengthens imbalance. Every repeated action trains the brain toward either control or dependency. And the most powerful part of all this is that the human brain can change. No matter how trapped someone feels right now, the nervous system is capable of adaptation. The body is capable of healing. The mind is capable of rebuilding discipline. Confidence can return. Pleasure can normalize. Emotional connection can deepen again. Erections and control can improve when the brain and body are finally given the conditions they were designed to function in. Your sexual health is not separate from your mental health, your lifestyle, your sleep, your stress levels, your emotional state, and your daily habits. They are all connected far more deeply than most people realize. And sometimes, the habit quietly affecting erections, control, and pleasure is not just changing the body. It is changing the brain itself. We hope you like the video. Press the like button and hit the share. Don't forget to subscribe to the Sexual Health Room and press bell icon for future videos.